Good day, Sir Nugal. For today, I will be discussing Section 4 to Section 13. So let's begin with Section 4. Section 4, Grant of Probation. Grant of probation subject to the provision of this decree, the court may, after it shall have convicted and sentenced a defendant, and upon application at any time of said defendant, suspend the execution of said sentence, and place the defendant on probation for such period, and upon such term and conditions as may deem best provision, may be granted whether the sentence imposes a term of imprisonment or a fine. Only an application for probation shall be filed with the trial court, with the notice to the appellate court if an appeal has right to appeal or the automatic withdrawal of a pending appeal. So the section outlines the condition under which a court can grant probation to a convicted defendant. It states that following a conviction and sentencing, a defendant can apply for probation. Allowing the court to suspend the execution of the sentence, probation can be granted for a specified period and with certain terms and conditions deemed appropriate by the court. This provision applies regardless of whether the sentence includes imprisonment or just fine. When applying for probation, the defendant must submit an application to the trial court with notification to the appellate court if an appeal is pending or if the defendant has the right to appeal. This ensures that the relevant authorities are aware of the request for probation and can make informed decisions regarding its approval or denial. Section 5, Post-Sentence Investigation. No person shall be placed on probation except upon prior investigation by the probation officer and a determination by the court that the ends of justice and the best interest of the public as well as that of the defendant will be served thereby. So this section outlines the requirement for a post-sentence investigation before a person can be placed on probation. It states that no individual can be granted probation without first undergoing an investigation by the probation officer. The court must then make a determination that granting probation serves the ends of justice and is in the best interest of both the public and the defendant. In essence, this process ensures that probation is not granted arbitrarily but is instead based on a thorough examination of the circumstances surrounding the case and the individual's background. It aims to assess whether probation is an appropriate course of action that aligns with the principles of justice and serves the welfare of both the community and the defendant. Let's move on to Section 6, Form of Investigation Report. The investigation report to be submitted by the probation officer under Section 5 hereof shall be in the form prescribed by the probation administrator and approved by the Secretary of Justice. So Section 6 specifies the format of the investigation report required for probation cases, as mandated in Section 5. It states that the report must adhere to a specific format prescribed by the probation administrator and approved by the Secretary of Justice. This requirement ensures consistency and standardization in the information presented in the investigation report submitted by probation officers. By following a prescribed format, the reports can effectively convey relevant details about the defendant's background, circumstances of the offense, and suitability for probation. Standardization also facilitates the review of process by ensuring that all necessary information is included and presented in a clear and organized manner. Ultimately, adherence to the prescribed format helps uphold the integrity and effectiveness of the probation system. Section 7, Period of submission of investigation report. The probation officer shall submit to the court the investigation report on a defendant not later than 60 days from receipt of the order of said court to conduct investigation. The court shall resolve the petition for probation not later than 5 days after receipt of said report. So Section 7 establishes timeliness for the submission and resolution of the investigation report and probation petition. It mandates that the probation officer must submit the investigation report to the court within 60 days of receiving the court's order to conduct the investigation. So once the report is submitted, the court is required to resolve the petition for probation within 5 days of receiving the report. This ensures timely consideration of the probation request and prevents unnecessary delays in the legal process. By setting clear deadlines, this section aims to expedite the probation process, allowing for swift decisions regarding the defendant's eligibility for probation and ensuring that justice is administered promptly. Now, Section 8 is the criteria for placing an offender on probation. In determining whether an offender may be placed on probation, the court shall consider all information relative to the character, antecedents, environmental and physical condition of the offender, and available institutional and community resources. Probation shall be denied if the court finds that the offender is in need of correctional treatment that can be provided most effectively by his commitment to an institution, and jurors that during the period of probation the offender will commit another crime. And C is the probation will depreciate of the seriousness of the offense committed. So Section 8 outlines the criteria that the court must consider when determining whether to place an offender on probation. It states that the court should take into account various factors related to the offender's character, background, environment, mental, and physical condition, as well as the available resources both within institutions and the community. Probation may be denied if the court finds the offender requires correctional treatment that would be best provided through institutional commitment rather than probation. There is an assurance that the offender may commit another crime during the probation period, or granting probation would diminish the seriousness of the offense committed. These criteria serve to guide the court in making informed decisions about probation eligibility. They aim to balance the rehabilitation needs of the offender with public safety concerns and the seriousness of the offense, ensuring that probation is granted only when appropriate and in the best interest of both the individual and society. So Section 9, disqualified offenders. The benefit of this decree shall not be extended to those A. sentenced to serve a maximum term of imprisonment of more than 6 years, B. convicted of any offense against security of the state, C. who have previously been convicted by final judgment of an offense punished by imprisonment of not less than 1 month and 1 day or a fine not less than 200 pesos, D. who have been once on probation under the provisions of this decree, and E. who are already serving sentence at the time the substantive provisions of this decree became applicable pursuant to Section 33 hereof. So, Section 9 identifies the specific categories of offenders who are disqualified from benefiting from the provisions of the decree regarding probation. This includes individuals who have been sentenced to serve maximum term of imprisonment exceeding 6 years, have been convicted of any offense against the security of the state, have previous convictions for offenses punishable by imprisonment of at least 1 month and 1 day, have been already granted probation under the provisions of this decree and are already serving a sentence at the time the substantive provisions of this decree became applicable. So by listing these disqualifications, the section aims to delineate the boundaries of eligibility for probation, ensuring that certain categories of offenders are not granted probation under the decree's provisions. This helps maintain the integrity of the probation system and ensures that probation is granted only to those individuals who meet the specified criteria and are deemed for its benefit. Now let's discuss Section 10, Condition of Probation. Every probation order issued by the court shall contain conditions requiring probationer shall A. Present himself to the probation officer designated to undertake his supervision at such place as may be specified in the order within 72 hours from receipt of said order. B. Report to the probation officer at least once a month at such time and place as is specified by said officer. The court may require the probationer to A. Cooperate with the program of supervision. B. Meet his family responsibility. C. Devote himself to a specific employment and not to change said employment without a prior written approval of the probation officer. D. Undergo medical, physiological, or psychiatric examination and treatment and enter and remain in a specified institution when required for that purpose. E. Pursue a prescribed secular study or vocational training. F. Attend or reside a facility established for instruction, recreation, or residence of person on probation. G. Refrain from visiting houses of ill repute. H. Abstain from drinking intoxicating beverages to excess. I. Permit the probation officer or an authorized social worker to visit his home and place or work. J. Resides at premises approved by it and not to change its residence without its prior written approval. K. Satisfy any other condition related to the rehabilitation of the defendant and not unduly restrictive of his liberty or incompatible with his freedom of conscience. So Section 10 outlines the condition that must be included in every probation order issued by the court. These conditions are designed to ensure the effective supervision and rehabilitation of the probationer. Here is an explanation of each condition. A. The probationer must report to the designated probation officer within 72 hours of receiving the probation order. B. The probationer must regularly report to the probation officer, typically at least once a month. The court may require probationer to cooperate with the supervision program, fulfill family responsibilities, maintain specific employment with prior approval, undergo medical or physiological treatment, or enter a specified institution when necessary. D. The probationer may be required to pursue secular studies or vocational training, attend facilities for instruction or recreation, refrain from visiting disreputable places, abstain from excessive alcohol consumption, permit home visits by probation officers or social workers, reside at approved premises, and satisfy any other rehabilitation-related conditions not unduly restrictive or incompatible with their freedom of conscience. These conditions aim to provide a structure and support to probationers, helping them reintegrate into society while ensuring compliance with the terms of their probation and promoting their rehabilitation. Section 11. Effectivity of probation order. A probation order shall take effect upon its issuance, at which time the court shall inform the offender of the consequences thereof and explain that upon his failure to comply with any of the conditions prescribed in the said order of his commission, of another offense, he shall serve the penalty imposed for the offense under which he was placed on probation. This specifies the effectiveness of a probation order, stating that it takes effect immediately upon issuance by the court. At the time of issuing the probation order, the court is required to inform the offender of the implications of probation and explain the consequences of failure to comply with the conditions outlined in the order. The court must emphasize to the offender that if they fail to adhere any of the prescribed conditions or commit another offense while on probation, they will be subject to serving the penalty originally imposed for the offense for which they were placed on probation. In essence, this section ensures that offenders are fully aware of the terms and implications of their probation, emphasizing the importance of compliance and the potential consequences of non-compliance or further criminal behavior. Section 12, Modification of Condition of Probation. During the period of probation, the court may, upon application of either the probationer or the probation officer, revise or modify the conditions or period of probation. The court shall notify either the probationer or the probation officer of the filing such as an application, so as to give both parties an opportunity to hear thereon. The court shall inform in writing the probation officer and the probationer of any change in the period or condition of probation. Section 12 outlines the process for modifying the conditions or period of probation during the probationary period. Either the probationer or the probation officer can apply to the court for a revision or modification of the probation conditions or period. Once an application is filed, the court must notify both probationer and the probation officer to provide them with the opportunity to be heard on the matter. This ensures that both parties can have a chance to present their arguments or concerns regarding the proposed modification. And after considering the application and hearing from both parties, the court may decide to revise or modify the conditions or period of probation as deemed appropriate. It is essential that the court informs both the probation officer and the probationer in writing of any changes made to the probation conditions or period. This ensures transparency and clarity regarding the updated terms of probation for all parties involved. Overall, the section allows for flexibility in adjusting probation conditions or period based on changing circumstances or the progress of the probationer during the probationary period. And lastly is Section 13, Control and Supervision of Probationer. The probationer and his probation program shall be under the control of the court who placed him on probation, subject to the actual supervision and visitation by a probation officer. Whenever a probation is permitted to reside in a place under the jurisdiction of another court, control over him shall be transferred to the executive judge of the court of first instance of that place, and in such a case a copy of probation order, the investigation report, and other pertinent records shall be furnished said executive judge. Thereafter, the executive judge, to whom jurisdiction over the probationer is transferred, shall have the power with respect to him that was previously possessed by the court which granted the probation. So, Section 13 delineates the control and supervision of probationers. It states that the probationer and their probation program are under the control of the court that granted the probation. The court exercises supervision over the probationer, including through the regular visitation and oversight by a probation officer. If a probationer is permitted to reside in an area under jurisdiction of another court, control over the probationer is transferred to the executive judge of the court of first instance in that location. In such cases, a copy of the probation order, the investigation report, and other relevant records are provided to the executive judge. Once jurisdiction is transferred, the executive judge assumes the same powers and responsibilities over the probationer as those previously held by the court that granted the probation. This ensures continuity in supervision and accountability regardless of the probationer's location, maintaining effective oversight throughout the probationary period. So that is all, sir. Thank you.